And I feel a great loyalty to that church. Reverend Wright was going to be retiring in a year, and I thought it was important for me to maintain my commitment to that church.
He said in a letter to the New York Times, he suggested that you apologized for not letting him do the invocation. Is that true?
Well, what happened was that I was sorry that he felt hurt by that decision, and that may be a fault of mine that I own up to, which is that I'm concerned about how other people feel, particularly somebody who I've known for quite some time. But that doesn't detract from my belief that ultimately what he has what he's been saying about the United States over the last several months and over the last several years, particularly some of the statements that I had not heard before, are contrary to who I am and what I stand for. And look, I think it's important to put this in context, Tim. I'm somebody who's born to a white mother and an African father. It's in my DNA to believe that we can bring this country together and that people are the same under the skin. And that's what I've been fighting for all my life. And to a large degree, everything that I've done as a community organizer, everything that I've done as a state legislator and a United States senator embodies those ideals, that we can get people who look differently or speak differently or come from different experiences to recognize what they have in common. That is a set of principles that I think Reverend Wright was dismissing and diminishing, and that's why ultimately I had to forcefully state how wrong I thought he was.
You're new to the national political scene. Is it fair for people to raise questions about your judgment for misjudging Reverend Wright?
Well, I think it's fair for people to look at this episode along with all the other things that I've done over the last 20 years. When you're running for president, your life's an open book. And I think that people have a right to lift the hood and kick the tires, and this is one element of a much larger track record that has led me to not only run for president, but to help build a movement all across the country to bring about change. I ultimately trust the American people that they'll put this in context and they'll say, you know what, this is not who Barack Obama is. It's not what he's stood for. It's not what he's said. It's not what he's written. And so I think a lot of people understand that you have people in your lives over periods of time. They change sometimes. They may go off in a different direction. Sometimes the rupture in relationships may be painful, but they're necessary, and that's what's happened here.
You're done with him. If you're elected president, you won't seek his counsel?
Absolutely not. And now, I think it's important to keep in mind, Tim, that I never sought his counsel when it came to politics. And some of the reporting that implies that somehow he's my spiritual advisor or mentor, as he himself said, overstated things. He was my pastor, and he built a terrific church. I'm proud of that church. We've got a wonderful young pastor who's there, who's continuing the terrific work that the church does, and that's my commitment. My commitment are to the values of that church. My commitment is to Christ. It's not to Reverend Wright.
Could you have handled this better, differently, by severing your ties earlier? And what's the most important thing you've learned from this?
Well, when you're in national politics, it's always good to pull the Band-Aid off quick. And I think that's what the political consultants will tell you. But life's messy sometimes. And it's not always neat, and things don't proceed in textbook political 101 fashion. And so, when I reflect back, what I'm proud of is that in the speech in Philadelphia, I think I made a contribution to the overall dialogue about how we deal with race in America. And I think that me denouncing his words without denouncing him was, at the time, the right thing to do. I'm sorry that he didn't see an opportunity for him to reflect on the justifiable anger and pain that he had caused. and to maybe suggest to the American people that that's not what he believed. But clearly, one of the things when you're running for president is that you don't have all this stuff is happening under a spotlight, and you've got to deal with it quickly.
You were in North Carolina on Tuesday and talked about the tone of the campaign over the last few weeks. Let's listen.
The other candidates aren't talking about their ideas, they're talking about me. So they're talking about they're talking about who is he, and do we know his values, and he's not wearing a flag pin right now, and his former pastor said some crazy stuff.
You basically are outlining the kind of ads that you anticipate being run against you.
Right.
In 2004, John Kerry was swift-boated. People challenged his patriotism, challenged his record in the U.S. military. When independent groups, so-called, come after you in the fall, if you're the nominee, and they talk about the flag pin and about your wife Michelle's comment about being proud for the first time in her adult life as an American, and talk about Reverend Wright saying, "God damn America," and talk about standing at the national anthem at the state fry, not putting your hand over your heart. All those things, challenging your patriotism. Many superdelegates, undecided ones, have said to me, is he tough enough? How is he going to respond? How is he going to defend or define his patriotism? What's the answer?
Well, first of all, I have never challenged other people's patriotism. I haven't challenged Hillary Clinton's or John McCain's, and I will not stand by and allow somebody else to challenge mine. The fact that I'm running for president right now is an indication of how much I love this country, because it has given everything to me. This country has been a great source of good. I've lived overseas and seen the difference between America and what it stands for and what other countries oftentimes stand for and where they fall short. I've said before, my story is not possible in any other country on earth. When I think about this country, I think about my grandfather fighting in World War II in Patton's Army. I think about my grandmother staying home, staying back and working on a bomber assembly line while she's raising a kid as they're coming out of a depression. And so this country it defines for me what's possible for not just me, but for so many people who see this as a beacon of good, including my father, who originally came here seeking an education in this country. So I love this country. It is what I have been fighting for, that America lives up to its values and its ideals, and that's what I think the people of Indiana and that's what the people of North Carolina are looking for right now. What they love this country as well, but what they believe is that the values that have built this country, the belief in that hard work is rewarded, that you can raise a family and have health care and buy a home and retire with dignity and respect, that those things feel like they're slipping away. And what this campaign's about, what I think this moment is about in America, is whether or not we are going to fight for those ideals that make this country great. And if we miss that opportunity, then I think we will be doing a disservice to future generations. So I'm happy to have a debate, an argument with the Republican Party or any of my opponents about what this country means, what makes it great, and what makes it great ultimately is its people and how the American people are able to live out their American dream. And right now, all too often, Washington is failing in helping them to live out the American dream, and that's what I think this election is going to be about in November.
The National Journal says that in 26 of the 29 contests you've been involved in, you have lost white voters who do not have college degrees. How do you connect with them? What's wrong?
Well,